take its rightful place in the 21st century. They are proving that the greatest resource for Africa in leading its charge towards winning the 21st century lies on this youth. But despite the fact that this is happening, this is not a given. It is not a given, and this means that we need to ask practical questions and be honest with ourselves. Why is it that we have these innovations and ideas happening in the continent each and every day? By this creative youth, by this talented youth. But the problems are not being solved. We still get up in the morning with Africa being a continent where more than 240 million people are going to bed hungry. Why is it that we're still having these problems? And we are going to do a diagnosis right here today to answer that question. Because with these innovations, as I've said, it's not a given. And despite all this excellent innovation, Africa is still where it is today. Such a question will only be answered when we do a total soul searching. So this is a total soul searching exercise. We are here today to do that total soul searching. And this is summed up in one of my favorite African proverbs. I have so many of them. Which goes thus: do not look at where you fell, but where you sleep. Do not look at where you fell, but where you sleep. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, such a soul searching is inevitable to any right thinking person. Such a soul searching is inevitable to any right thinking person that knows about Africa's paradox. The paradox of lack amidst plentiful opportunities. How is it that Africa, which is one of the most resource regions of the globe, ends up last in this age of knowledge and information? How is it that a continent that has got nearly everything at the same time lacks nearly everything? This is paradoxical. And in 2019, we should not even be talking about this. How can the devastating challenges that have become synonymous to the name Africa, whether we're talking of extreme hunger, with kids being buried before they reach the age of 5 because of lack of nutritious food, whether we're talking of poverty, entrenched poverty, Africa is the first synonymous to entrenched poverty. Whether we're talking of disease, or we're talking of ridiculous high levels of youth unemployment, Africa is the first of it. Or we're talking of youth being buried under the Mediterranean Sea, that is not where they belong, or being sold into slavery for paltry sums of money, crossing the Sahara Desert in search of elusive greener pastures. Africa is the first of it. But this is happening in a continent that exists alongside immense natural world. The second largest continent, holding a vast proportion of world resources, both renewable and non-renewable, where we're talking from gold to chromium to diamonds. And all these drive global economy worth 74 trillion US dollars. But Africa only benefits 1.5% of this global economy. Paradoxical. Distinguished colleagues, it doesn't only end there. We talk of non-renewable resources. Africa holds 65% of uncultivated rebel land. But at the same time, 240 million people going to bed hungry. At the same time, the continent is importing food worth 35 billion US dollars each and every year, importing unemployment and exporting employment. This is unacceptable to any right-thinking person. I refuse to associate with that. And that is why we must be able to challenge this. And we are doing a thorough soul searching. We are laying the ground for that soul searching, and at the end of this, we must find an answer. In a continent that, as you look outside, 365 days of sunshine, yet we have 620 million African citizens energy impoverished. Unacceptable. It is unacceptable. These statistics are real. They are not made up. They are real. But we come every year discussing these issues in meetings, in conferences, running around, and the same problems perpetuate each and every year. We cannot continue along that pathway. Distinguished colleagues, the reality is that despite all this abundance, whether it is renewables, non-renewables, Africa takes last. Yes, it does. Just to give an example, consider cocoa, a crop that is the primary ingredient of chocolate enjoyed all over the world. While God gave Africa the privilege of having the largest producer globally, the entire continent gets a dismal 2% of the 100 billion worth global chocolate market. there is not a single indigenous chocolate brand that is popular in our supermarkets that is produced from this African continent. So Africa produces sweet to produce cocoa, and others eat sweets. Isn't it so? We prefer to let others make chocolates rather than make them competitively ourselves. This is a shame, and consequently 98 billion worth of jobs, worth of income, worth of food, secure home, worth of quality lives that would otherwise make Africa first are lost. Distinguished guests, it is not only a failure to leverage on the continent's advantages to get ahead, but a clear trend of retrogression where others progress. For example, during the independent dispensation of the 1960s, South Korea was a country in economic trouble. This is real. South Korea was a country in the 1960s when Africa was fighting for self-determined rule during the independent dispensation. South Korea was a country in economic trouble. So bad was the situation that Korean population faced acute starvation, prompting goodwill from nations, including from Africa. And if you care to know, Kenya back then gave South Korea a loan of $10,000 and food aid. And the loan was later repaid. Fast forward to today, South Korea with no minerals. South Korea with no minerals. And roughly 5 times smaller than many African countries, has an economy estimated at 15 times that combined of all African economies. What a shame. It is shameful. And we must be able to honestly diagnose this. We cannot hide behind and talk sometimes to please what? We cannot do that, because the reality is that Africa's solutions are global solutions. Africa's solutions are global solutions, and we must be realistic when we are discussing these issues. In 1960, South Korea was at power with many African countries. And today, as we're speaking, South Korea, with no minerals and roughly 5 times smaller than many African countries, has an economy estimated 15 times the combined size of all African economies. The Samsung phones that many of you have got here, I've got one, they are produced in South Korea. The Samsung TVs that you've got in your living rooms, they are produced in South Korea. What does Africa produce? We consume what we don't produce and produce what we don't consume. This is paradoxical. In 2019, we must not be talking about this. The marvelous meteoric rise can be summed up in one of my African proverbs. The meteoric rise of South Korea is summed up in one of my African proverbs, my best African proverbs. As I said, I have so many of them that are best. Which is very simple, that he who has no ponds should not breed crocodiles. If you don't have ponds, why are you breeding crocodiles? You breed them out. How does that work? It doesn't work. It has never worked. It's a flat logic. It's a flat logic that has not worked. We are doing an experiment that has not produced results. He who has no pond should not breed crocodiles. South Korea didn't use magic. They didn't use juju. As we think in the country, they didn't use witchcraft. We like talking about witchcraft, right? Complaining and talking about witchcraft. South Korea didn't use juju. The logic was quite very simple. South Korea focused on maximizing on strategic industries for which it held a comparative advantage, because you can only compete from a position of strength. I have never seen anywhere on earth where countries have overtaken others, whether in terms of economic growth, economic prosperity, or military might. It doesn't matter. They compete using their strength. They leverage on their strength. But we leverage on our weaknesses to complain and blame others, to pull others down. This is unacceptable. We cannot move forward. You will not be able to create the jobs and create wealth for yourselves if we have that mentality. It will not work. It will not work. This is what South Korea did. It was not magic and it was not juju. It was not witchcraft. They leverage on their comparative advantages and leverage on human capital across all sectors towards complementing productivity, maximization, and global competitiveness in their strategic areas. Leveraging on comparative advantages and utilizing human capital was how South Korea built a formidable economic foundation that led to its rise. This is a lesson Africa must learn. This is a lesson Africa must learn to win in the 21st century. It is a lesson all of you seated here today at this Skill Hunt Summit 2009. You must be able to take that lesson. And I will sum it up with 2 words: skills retooling. I sum this up in 2 words: skills retooling. All of us, regardless of our disciplines or our backgrounds, must refine, must improve, and must realign. Let me repeat that again. You must be able to refine your skill, retool it, and realign it. The fact that you think that I did marketing, or I did economics, or I did anthropology, no, the government must create me a job in anthropology. Never will that will ever work anywhere in the world. You must be able to refine, improve, and realign your skill to tap opportunities in Africa's area of competitive advantage. Taking this dimension takes more than just talking about it. It will take energy, it will take passion,